So how did this all come about, Rick? Walk me through it, best you can tell.
Well, I mean, as best as I can, figure, and I've, talked to people that, around Tom. I mean, you don't actually get Tom very often, but they had said, look, give this guy 90 days. Well, it only took 40, right? And we know it, Noah built an ark in 40 days, so you can make up your mind about a lot of things. But I think, I think it's something that he is, more than hinted at. He has said, I don't know how I'll feel. He has said, never say never. A lot of those sort of open door things. Jason Light was going to keep the light on for him, right? Which is a T-shirt somewhere for somebody to make. But I think that, when I talk to coaches and I talk to people, they stayed in contact with Brady. And they didn't always talk about football, but there's been a lot of dialogue. And I think over the last 4 or 5 days maybe, and I know this, Rich, because something's really hot. And, of course, they were in it for Deshaun Watson. I mean, they were looking at that situation as well. But when everybody that you trust, that you have access to, goes 0 dark 30 on you, something's really hot, And so I think the way the clumsy rollout of the retirement in the first place probably bothered him. Tom was going to be the only one that announced it this time. They managed to keep that under wraps, at least for him to do that. And, I think they never shut the door. I think the Bucs played this perfectly, right? They obviously had to look at their options, and they were ready to move forward with it. And the timing is not coincidental. I mean, we're sitting here now. We have started the free agent negotiating period. They've already lost guard Alex Kappa, but since Brady announced that he was coming back, they re-signed Ryan Jensen, their center, and they re-signed Aaron Stinney even before the announcement. So they'll be able to retain some of these free agents now. And if he's going to play, he wanted them to know that, and he wanted to be the greatest recruiter in the NFL, which he has been. So all of that sort of got us to where we're at today.
Any sense at all of when it really solidified? Because again, it was just 6 days after his social media blitz. Interestingly enough, a day after he could have done it on his own podcast and didn't take that shot, that he did appear on his Let's Go pod and said never say never to the concept of being done. And then, Fred Couples, during Combine Week, he winds up on Fred's podcast and says something along the lines of he's just enjoying hanging out with his family and he's sleeping in his own childhood bedroom, and and then he'll assess how things look in June. And at that point in time, he had to be well down the road of this decision. Any idea about the timing of when he actually decided this was not going to happen?
Yeah, I've asked people that, and I can't get a straight answer, and maybe it's because they don't know. Maybe Tom will have to tell us if there was a moment, right, when he was doing something, watching something. For the near as I can figure, in talking to people around him and coaches and whatnot, it came down to this. The guy can still flat out play. He's a football player. This is what he does, and he does it as well as anyone in the world. He always has. He just finished the season, where, he led the NFL in passing, 5,316 yards, 43 touchdowns. If not for, a couple of bad defensive plays, he brought him back, against the Rams, down 24 points and tied that game, and they go in overtime. If they win that, they host the 49ers, and maybe they beat the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's how close these games are sometimes when you get into the postseason. We saw that. So he feels like he has a chance to win, and he knows he can play. And I just think, he needed that time. I don't know exactly what the pressure was to announce his retirement when he did. I don't know the forces behind that, but I think that, every offseason he does kind of the same thing, right? He takes a lot of time, spends a lot of time with his family, does a lot of traveling. And I don't think he could stomach come August when the training camps opened, not being in the mix, not knowing that he's as good or better than most of the quarterbacks out there, if not all of them, and that he could still lead a team. And that's what he loves to do. I mean, there's not many of these guys. There's exactly one of them, but he loves to play the game. I mean, I think his love of football, as much as anything, is what this is about. And, certainly he doesn't have to prove anything to anybody else but himself. And I just think he felt like he would be too miserable watching right now, knowing that he's that good and he can still make a difference and lead a team to a championship.
And then one last one on the timing of it, him being at the Man U match, over the weekend. Was that just coincidence? He always wanted to take his family to Old Trafford, or was he locking things up with the Glazer family in face-to-face?
Well, it was convenient timing. I don't know. Tom can pretty much fire up his own plane anytime he wants.
Right.
Me and you'd have to make reservations, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if it works like that, but it certainly. I think people. A couple of things, Rich. We've talked about this on your show. This narrative that there was, bad feelings between the Bucs or Bruce Arians. I don't think any of that was ever true. I know how much he respects the Glazers, how grateful he is. Certainly, they're grateful to him. He brought them a Lombardi Trophy and all the notoriety, and they're relevant again, and they are again for 2022. So I think they would have, listened to Tom and accepted whatever decision he had. But I think we'd be naive to think that, while I'm sure he wanted to go see Ronaldo play, and bring his sons, and that's a great experience. That team is owned by the Glazer family, and that shows again that there is a trust there. There's a bond there. And, this notion that he would go play somewhere else, I never really thought that was a great possibility. The 49ers had said no to him when they drafted Gio Carmazzi. They said no to him when he left New England. I don't think he was going to give him a chance to say no a third time. So if he was going to play, he was going to play here. And that's what the Bucs had been telling us. And I think you had to take them at their word. And I think, just the way they went about it, doing their homework, doing their research, ready to move on if they needed to, but always keeping that door open, the light on, whatever. I think that was important. So I'm sure he let the owners know the good news when he was out there. I think he certainly knew by then. And from what I understand, he's known for several days.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.